soul just for you and me. The dogwood was never to grow strong and tall again.
Hello, this is old Lonnie Jones again with my story and what God's done for me. And boy, has he done a lot. You know, I just got done with episode number 26, and God was right in the middle of everything that I was doing. At one time, see, I had sold out, and I didn't even have a regular job. And I'm riding down the road, and I get this phone call, and then I go to Huntsville, Alabama, fix a job for a man. Man hires me. Well, let me tell you about what our deal was on hiring me. This story here is going to be about 3 or 4 stories. Since I'm on this story, we're going to have to tell it all, and I can't get it in the next 2 or 3 stories. It's going to be several stories here. So I want to back up. I done told you about hiring the girls in the last one, about doing all the stuff, bringing all the stuff from Nashville down to Huntsville, Alabama, and doing all the stuff down there that I was doing up here because he had went bankrupt up here. I told you about going to the auction, buying everything back for $125 that I had given several thousand for back some years back. So now we're on episode number 27 now, and we're going to talk a little bit about the girls I hired. They knew nothing about plastic. We had one boy there that I had taught him. He was coming along real well, and so I wanted to sort of talk about the girls a little bit, because the girls are going to come in another episode in a little different manner, in a little different fashion. And we're looking at 1999 here. This is the year 1999. And it's in the middle of summer and everything. And anyway, I've got all this work doing down there. And the deal between me and the boss was, and big mistake, not putting nothing on paper. Big mistake. The deal was with me and the man owned the place down there, was he would pay me $750 a week to run the place, plus 10% of what we did. 10% of what we did. Now, there's one thing I didn't make clear, but it didn't make no difference because it never come to reality anyway. I didn't make it clear on the 10% that would be 10% of the profit or 10% of the gross. I did not make that distinction. And again, not on paper, my fault. As Ronnie says, my bad. I didn't know what my bad was for a long time. Heard Ronnie say my bad. I didn't know what he's talking about. So I'm just coming out of a cave, so don't pay attention to me. But anyway, we had agreed that he would give me $750 a week and 10% of all the work that I brought in. Well, let's just say that the 10% between the profit or the loss or the whole doesn't really, at this point, doesn't really matter, because I really never got it anyway, one way or the other. But he paid me my $750 a week. Now, what I was doing is he bought this big double axle trailer. It's about a 20-footer, and every Friday I would load that thing totally up. It and my pickup truck would be completely full of plastic displays. I'd be bringing them back to Nashville because that's where my customers were. Because, again, the man I sold to took bankrupt, went out of business. So I was doing nothing wrong. So I was getting that work. Plus, I was getting work from out of Huntsville as well, because Huntsville, Alabama, they make missile parts for missiles down there. I mean, it's absolutely Silicon Valley. in so many words when it comes to aerospace. Would nobody believe it if you hadn't dealt with the people. So anyway, I was getting that work, plus work from up here. I'd hired the 4 girls and had the guy, and then I had that truck driver that you couldn't deal with. You tell him to do something, he'd do just the opposite. So he and I had a falling out, so he was the boss's pet or whatever, so that eliminated that. So I'm going along here, and everything is just going smooth, silk. And I told y'all a while ago about the bunk up here. There wasn't no stage here. About the bunk over here, the bathroom in there, and the air conditioner coming in here, and a little old table sitting right where these steps where you come on stage. There was a little old table sitting right there, and that's where I'd eat supper, and because I wasn't cooking nothing, because I'd go buy it and bring it here and eat it and everything. And Larry had a couple of Silver Eagle buses, and he would be working on buses here, and he'd come in and sit down and eat with me every now and then. So that was why I was telling you about why the bunk was here, and I was living right here where I'm sitting right now. I was living right where the stage is at in 1999. Well, I was working down there, bringing all the stuff up here and distributing it on Friday afternoon, and I would stay up here and play music Friday night, Saturday night, go back home Sunday afternoon down in Huntsville, Alabama. Well, I still hadn't gotten my 10% of nothing, but he was paying my $750 a week, and he was buying my fuel and everything else. So I wasn't too worried about it, not really, although I should have been. I should have thought a little more about it than I did. But so anyway, I was staying here on weekends and going back down there and working all week. Well, I seen it was going to turn into longer than I thought it was going to, so I bought me a home. I bought me a home in Madison, Alabama, which is 12 miles out of downtown Huntsville. In Madison, Alabama. I bought me a house down there, and I was living, of course, by myself. I was down there by myself, living and going to work and running into place. I was the first one there every morning, and I was the last one to leave every night. So anyway, this thing went on, and there was a lady there. I hired another lady to help out, and one day we were back there working and talking, and she spoke up and says, Lonnie, have you ever had your fortune read? Now, what I would like to do is back up from 1999 by 5 years. And the reason for that is it has to do with fortune telling. Well, God says you're not supposed to be involved in fortune telling. And of course, at that time, I wasn't thinking about that type of thing. I'd be honest with you, wasn't thinking about it. So we're going to back up 5 years. I was having trouble with a marriage, and I wasn't eating right, and I was keeping a headache all the time. Now, I want you to know I had done quit drinking back in 1988. 1988, I quit drinking. So I wasn't drinking. Drinking wasn't my problem. Marriage was my problem. I wasn't doing good in a marriage. And I was keeping a headache all the time, wasn't eating good, wasn't sleeping good, and I was taking a lot of aspirins. And the aspirins I was taking were called Vanquish. I've still got some of them in my guitar case right now, and they're 20 years old. But that's another story. And that's where they're going to stay, is in my guitar case. I don't want no more of them. So I was taking these aspirins. So I was about to walk on stage to do a show out here at the Agricultural Center off of Nolensville Road, and I felt something bust in my stomach. Well, that aspirin had eat a hole in my stomach. Now, let's back up 30 days from the time I felt that bust in my stomach. We're going back up 30 days. I'm with 2 or 3 friends of mine at the big flea market in Lebanon, Tennessee. Up near Cedars of Lebanon. There's a big yard sale thing across the street from there. So I'm there, and we're walking down through one Sunday afternoon down through here, and here sits this fortune teller, and this fortune teller stops me and looks at me. He said, or she, I'm sorry. She said, "You ever had your fortune read?" I said, "No." I said, "I really don't believe in it." She said, "Well, you shouldn't put it down till you try. Try it one time." Well, I said, "How much does it cost to try?" She said, $20. And these people with me said, "Why, go ahead and try it. What you got to lose? You ain't nothing to lose." So, okay, I hand her $20. Now, this is a month later than something here. A month before. I hand her the $20. She takes my hand out like this. First thing she says, "You got a long lifeline. You're going to live a long time." And then she tells me about these other lines in my hand. She says, and inside, you've got a problem. Inside, if something's wrong with you, you're going to have a problem. Huh. I took that with a grain of salt because she's a fortune teller, you know. I took that with a grain of salt. Well, let me tell you about that grain of salt, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. Approximately a month from that time, I was about to do the show out there at the Agriculture Center. Took a step up on the stage, and it hit me. Something had busted in my stomach. I went to the car and sat down, and I was hurting fiercely. They called an ambulance. Ambulance come and got me and carried me to the emergency room. What's the name of that hospital? Southern Hills. Southern Hills carried me out there to Southern Hills, and I'm telling you, I was hurting like I've never hurt in my life. And I was laying on that bed screaming and hollering and hurting. Well, when I passed out, and they took notice. When I passed out, they thought I died, I think. Well, they grabbed me, and the next thing I remember is 2 guys holding me in front of an x-ray machine, and I opened my eyes and passed right back out, and the last thing I remember hearing before waking up the next day is they were hollering, "We got one down in x-ray." Well, I'm the one that was down in x-ray. 2 guys holding me up because I done passed out. So they obviously rushed me to the emergency. They operated on me. I woke up the next day about midday with all this stuff down my nose and down my throat. And anyway, I was alive. Well, the point being for most of this is the fortune teller told me there was something internally wrong with me. And sure enough, it was. So God saved my life because that will kill you and kill you quick. All that acid and stuff running out inside your body. It was a terrible hurt, I promise you. Nobody can imagine how bad it hurt. So I recovered from that. And this was quite a bit before I went to Huntsville. So I did recover from that. Now, we're going to go back now to 1999, and we're talking about palm reading. We're talking about people that read your, what do you call them? But anyway, so this woman I hired, we were just working in there one day, and she said, "Have you ever had your fortune told?" I said, as a matter of fact, I did. Well, no, I had forgotten that I had my fortune read about my stomach having they called it a perforated ulcer is what they called it. Aspirin had done eat a hole in my stomach. So that's what they called it, was a perforated ulcer. But I had forgot that I had had that palm reading a month before that happened to me. So I told her at the time, I said, no, I don't believe in it. I've never had a fortune, my fortune never told. She said, well, since I got a brother, you ought to let him tell your fortune. I said, well, why would I do something like that? She said, well, you might learn something. I said, well, he can't tell me nothing about stuff like that. And it still hadn't wrong that I had been told something was wrong, and it really was by fortune teller. And we go ahead and keep talking, and I said, well, where's your brother at? She said, he's in Oklahoma. I said, he's in Oklahoma, and he's gonna read me from Oklahoma. She said, yes, sir, he sure can. Now, ladies and gentlemen, everything I'm telling you is a fact if ever I told it. If I ever told the truth, I'm telling you it's the truth. And I'm going to tell you, God's in the middle of this mix like you wouldn't nobody believe. God had to be in the middle of the mix, or I wouldn't be sitting here telling you episode 27 today from Larry's Grand Old Garage, where I used to sleep right over there. Go to the bathroom right there. Nobody would, all this stuff. I'm throwing a year in on you here in 30 minutes, basically. So anyway, she said, I will guarantee you, she said, he can read your fortune from Oklahoma, and he tell you anything you need to know. I said, how can he do that when he can't even see my hand? He said, all he'll do is ask you some questions over the phone if you'll call him. And I don't know why she kept persisting. But she kept persisting that I do. So I said, I'll tell you what, if you're so determined he can do something like that, I said, I'm not worried for 10 seconds to let him do it. I just don't believe in that type of thing, but I'll do it because she was a great worker, great person, never give no trouble. By the way, none of them girls ever gave any trouble. They done what you asked them to do, never griped, they were just awesome compared to men griping all the time about something. Women never did gripe. So anyway, so she gave me his phone number, and I called him up. I sure did. I called him up, sat at my desk, went into my office. I called him up. I said, I understand your sister tells me that you're a fortune teller, and you can tell me something about me from Oklahoma. He said, I can. And he asked me, here's what he asked me. He said, what year were you born? What month was you born in? Where were you born? What county was you born in? And there is no way in this world this man knows me or her knows me from nobody. They don't know anything about nobody. I'm down in Huntsville, Alabama, and I didn't carry my past with me. I left my past up here. So nobody knew nothing about who was who's who, no kind of way. So anyway, to make a long story short, readers don't like to hear me say that, but I just have to say it every now and then. He asked me those questions, and he says, what was your mother's name? And what was your daddy's name? And I told him. And the last question he asked me was, you born at night, in the daytime or the nighttime? I said, I'll be honest with you, I was told I was born at night, at nighttime. He said, okay. If you were, he said, I'll know where you were or weren't, but you say you were born at night, so we'll go with that. So he said, I'll be getting back with you in a week or two. That's what he said. He said, I'll get back with you in a couple of weeks. So I done forgot all about it. Phone rang, and it was him on the phone calling from Oklahoma. Said, well, I got some stuff here that might or might not interest you. I don't know. But he said, here's what I got on you. Here's what I got about you. He said, there's a woman in your life that could make you so mad, you could kill her sometime. And her first name is Shirley. Now, how he ever knew that my ex-wife's name was Shirley, I don't know. And let me say this about Shirley. Shirley was a good woman. Nobody's going to run Shirley down. But Shirley was just so jealous, it was pathetic. And I don't even know what for. Why? It's nothing. I don't have a clue. But when she would be so jealous, she could make me so mad, just being jealous. And he was right. She'd make me so mad, I'd want to kill, strangler, and her first name was Shirley. Boy, did he hit that on the head. Did that get my attention or what? He said something else. He said, you're fixing to make a large purchase. I said, a large purchase? Yeah, he said, yeah. So you're going to make a fairly large purchase. And within the next 10 days. I said, okay. And he said, you're going to land a big contract there where you're working. He said, you're fixing to land a huge contract. And he said, one more thing. He said, you're going to come into a lot of money. You're going to come into a lot of money. Of course, I thought that was wonderful. I said, if that's all true, I said, that's great. So he said, you're going to come into a lot of money, you're going to land a big contract, and you're going to buy something big. Well, I had no clue to any of that thing. Only thing I knew was one thing for sure. He hit the first two things right on the nail on the head. I could just kill Shirley sometime. Of course I wouldn't have, but I felt like I could have, because she made me so mad for being so jealous. It was just pathetic. So he hit that on the nail right on the head. So wasn't no point in me really arguing no more than that, because I didn't know what was next, because I'm going to buy something big, I'm going to land a big contract, and I'm going to come into a lot of money. He said, well, that's the whole thing in a nutshell. He said, that's what's going to happen. I said, well, how much I owe you? He said, nothing. He said, I'm doing this for my sister. I'm doing this for my sister. She works for you, and said you're a good person and you treat them right down there and everything. So this is on the house. I said, okay. And I hung the phone up, went on about my business, went on out in the shop and told his sister what he had said. She said, and I told her that about Shirley was right and everything. He said, and she said, I don't know what it is, but the rest of it's going to come true too. Whatever it is going to come true as well. So, I want you to know, ladies and gentlemen, within 10 days, I was buying a house in Madison, Alabama. Remember me talking about buying a house in Madison, Alabama? That's how this led up to this. The fortune telling led up to why I'm telling you this, is because within those 10 days, I had bought a house, a $125,000 house in Madison, Alabama. Living down there, and was living down there by myself, because I was living in an apartment prior to that, because I quit coming up here. Well, I had to live in the apartment during the week, and I was still coming up here on weekends. But I got out of the apartment and bought that house. And when I bought the house, then of course I moved into it. Well, the next thing happened was, there's a lot of you, there's a ton of you out there remember Queen Elizabeth, the real pretty girl that got killed in the tunnel in a car wreck. Diane, I believe her name was Diane, is correct. But anyway, she got killed in that accident in that tunnel. And she was ahead of something that nobody that I'm talking to right now has a clue of what was going on. But she had this idea about overseas in these foreign countries, they were landmines from World War I, World War II, Korea. They were landmines out there killing people all the time that were still buried that nobody knew was there. So she come up with this idea. What they need to do is make a replica out of plastic that would look like the bomb, and then they would put the proper message on there. If you see this, do not touch. Well, I want you to know we got that contract, vacuum forming all those molds for all those different colored mines. And there was about, I believe it was about 8 different colored landmines that if you step on one, you are dead. And what we did is we landed this contract. It took a sheet of plastic. I believe the plastic was 4 foot wide and 4 foot, it was about 4 foot square. So we built this vacuum mold, and we had this big vacuum forming machine that you slide it in there, it got the plastic hot, you hit this button, and this vacuum would suck it down over the mold and make it look just like the mines that were buried in the ground overseas in all these countries. And this was through Diane. She was the queen at the time of England, I guess. Britain or something. Anyways, whatever she's the queen of, I'm not sure what it was. She was a princess, that's what she was. She's actually a princess. She was Princess Diane, that's what she was. Princess Diane. So she had come up with this idea, and we got the government contract. This was the big contract that fortune teller had told me I was going to land. I have done bought a house now. We just landed a $3 million government contract for vacuum forming plastic landmines. Just so 4 things he said has come true. 4 things he said has come true within a 4 or 5 month period. Those things had come true, every one of them. Now, we had to take those out, and then we had to trim them and cut them, and then we had different colors of paint that they got painted, because every mine was so they could identify them, were painted different colors and said different things on them so they could be identified. If they were seen underground over there, one of them's top was sticking up, you could see it and you know what it was. So we had to paint those, so that contract turned out to be right at $3 million. Remember me telling you back when I first got hired down there that I was supposed to get $750 a week and 10% of what I brought in. What I brought in now, if somebody else brought it in, a different matter. But what I went and got and brought in. Well, that's when the 10% hit me. That I hadn't never got 10%. And at the time, I had been there right at a year. I was down there in 1999 when they had I believe it was 98, when they had the big tornado come through and went through Shelby Park, down Shelby Avenue and all through there. But I was down there when all that was taking place. So anyway, I never did get my 10% of anything like that. And what I'm going to do is we're going to have to talk about more of that in the next series. But those 4 things that guy had told me from Oklahoma had came true. Well, I'm going to tell you about the 5th thing about coming into a lot of money. I'm going to tell you about that in the next episode, which I believe will be 28. Will be episode 28. So I don't know how close I am on time here. I don't want to run out of time, and I don't want to run over. So I'm pretty much done with episode number 27 then. And we're going to talk on episode 28 about the 6th thing. I believe it was the 6th thing where I was going to come into all this money and how I come into it, and I did. How I come into it was how ironic, actually. How I come into it, that is the wildest story in its own self that you're going to believe. But I'm going to cut it off right now on episode 27, and on 28 we're going to talk about the rest of this mine project and my coming into this money that I came into. So everybody keep your fingers crossed and hope everything's going to be all right. We're going to, don't forget 101 Flat Ridge Road up in, it's not in White House, it's sort of like Millersville, but it's a Friendship Missionary Baptist Church, and Brother Nelson Garrett is our minister there, and he is a wing dinger. I mean, he gets the job done. So we're there from 11 to 12 o'clock every Sunday morning, and if you can't be there, watch us on Facebook, live on Facebook. So, cause we have it on Facebook. So right now we're going to do a couple of numbers for you, and we'll close out on episode number 27 with a couple of numbers, and then I'll see you on episode 28. Okay? Thank you. And don't forget, God is in the middle of all of this. Believe you me. Here's one called Come Back to Me, Little Darling, Ronnie Lee Jones. Come back to me, little darling. I miss you each day and each night. Oh, come back to me, little darling. Don't leave me alone all my life. Come back to me, little darling. I miss you each day and each night. Oh, come back to me, little darling. Don't leave me alone all my life. Woo! Take that thing, son. Life is so lonely and blue. No matter what happens, my darling, I just can't forget loving you. Oh, come back to me, little darling. I miss you each day and each night. Oh, come back to me, little darling. Don't leave me alone all my life. Come back to me, little darling. I miss you each day and each night. Oh, come back to me, little darling.
soul.